What if I'm wrong? What if there is more to life than this? What if somehow consciousness continues after the death of the brain in some way? What if there is this thing that people call a soul? What if I'm wrong? Do I know? Can I know for certain that such a thing doesn't exist? No, of course not. There doesn't appear to be any evidence for it, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means there is a lack of evidence for its existence. It's one of those things that has to be believed to be seen. But what if I'm right? What if this existence is all there is? But what it actually is much more than meets the eye, the mind, in the sense of our everyday experience. If we don't think deeply about it, if we don't look beyond what we already know, if we don't stare into the face of the unknown and try and make it known, how can we know what more there might be to this thing we take for granted? Think about thinking. It's inescapable. It's what we do. It's what defines us. The fact that we can think, the fact that we take away thought and we're nothing. We simply don't exist without our thoughts. So much so that we think that thinking is everything. It defines everything. I guess this is where our ideas of the soul, the eternal soul, come from consciousness, this idea that the ultimate purpose of life, the universe, and everything, is to be conscious of itself in some way through us. I myself have considered this to be highly important for a long time. I'm having doubts now, but actually it's as important as we conscious beings tend to think it is. Maybe there's more. Maybe there's something more. And maybe what that more is unlike anything we, as reasoning beings that seek reasons and meaning, simply can't see, because it has no reason. There is no meaning. These things that dominate our thinking, our emotional thinking, because we are more than anything emotional beings, not rational ones, but emotional ones. We seek out justification for our emotional reactions to the world, to the universe, to life. It dominates our thinking in music, in art, in literature, in poetry, in film, in everything. Everything you look at, it's introspection. Even as we look out at the universe itself, to billions of years into the past, before we even existed, before thinking beings even existed, we still look to see ourselves reflected back, to find a meaning in this, to find a reason for things. But what if that's wrong? What if we're looking at it all wrong? If you think about it, one of the oddest things about us is we cannot escape our past. What I mean by that is not us personally, although we are all shaped by it. It shapes who we become in the future. But what I mean is human beings as a species. We base our understanding on meaning, reason, purpose, on ancient ideas, ideas that are thousands of years old, ideas set down by our ancestors, who simply didn't know, couldn't know what we have since discovered. Yet we put a great deal of emphasis on these ideas because they are deeply human. So we seek reason and purpose. We look for something like ourselves, consciousness. But the universe must have a purpose, must have a reason. It simply cannot mean to us nothing. But again, maybe this is wrong. Maybe this is the wrong way to look at things. That way we can't help but look at things. We project ourselves onto them. Whether on purpose or not, we can't help ourselves. There's conscious beings, there's thinking beings, there's feeling and reasoning beings, ones that need a purpose and a reason for things. We see it, or we seek it. But maybe it isn't there. Maybe it is something else. And then what strikes us is the most uncomfortable thing of all, most frightening thing of all. That these ideas that we carry around in us, passed down from generation to generation in tribal myths, in gods, in spirituality, in all these things, is the idea that maybe there really is nothing there. We're just expecting to find something. But just because we expect to find it doesn't mean it's there to find. And that ultimately, these very ideas we grow up with are passed down through the centuries, are blinding us to what stares us directly in the face. Yet we simply cannot comprehend it, because our minds are so full of this need, this desire to find a purpose and a reason and a meaning for everything. And here's something that's, it's impossible to imagine something that you can't imagine. To imagine something, it must be based on, in some way, ideas that already exist. Either things you discover or things that are already in your mind. It's very difficult to try and imagine things that are simply beyond your comprehension. Your mind will twist them, pull them, stretch them, until it can find something that it recognizes. We all do it. We can't help it. So, in order to at least try and grasp concepts, ideas that are totally alien to us, we have to step away from what we already know. We have to step back from those things that define us, give us hope, reason, meaning. But to do that is a very, very difficult thing. A very difficult thing. All I can say is what I've found is that it's not the collecting of facts, it's not the understanding of experimental evidence and collating ideas to build patterns in your head. It's using these things to re-engage the imagination, to try and create new patterns of thought, new ideas, new ways to think that you didn't think before. And you can only do that by disengaging from the old patterns of thinking, of reasoning. While you stick to them, you can't change, because they're always there, clouding everything, colouring everything. But when you do, you suddenly discover these whole new landscapes opening up. And then those landscapes fade into other landscapes until you finally start to see a whole new state of reality around you, which is nothing like the one you had before. The world is totally different. Yet essentially, it seems the same. But you know inside of yourself that it's not. It's taken on this deeper significance that it had before, which you couldn't possibly have seen before, because the ideas you already had inside your head blinded you to it. Now, here comes the kicker, the sting in the tail. If you do this, if you spend decades of your life chasing after something that you think might be there, because you doubt what people think already is there, then what's waiting on the other side? Well, what's waiting on the other side is the unknown. And worse still, perhaps, the unknowable. That realization that perhaps just because we think, we assume that that's important. We assume so many things based on the fact that we contemplate. But maybe the truth, if there is such a thing, even if there is such a thing, is of a totally different nature. No happy ending. Or maybe there is. And I haven't found it. So maybe you're better off where you are. Maybe I would have been. It's not a path I took. That's it, really. No great earth-shattering message. Just this realization that all we ever really do is scratch the surface. We can be arrogant enough to think we do more. We can be extremely arrogant and think we know answers to things that may not even be legitimate questions. We just assume they are. Just because we are doesn't mean there's a reason for us being. So maybe in the end, the only thing that really does matter is our relationships with each other. Maybe that really is the meaning of existence. Our existence is for this brief experience of being conscious, whatever that really means. I don't think I know. But one thing I do know is the people I care about matter.